Successor Systems, and I want to thank you first off for purchasing our custom-made pistol. We found ways to do things better than what was out there on the market. We are looking at the latest technology, but with that comes some very basic types of maintenance for your gun that you're going to take on. You know, as a general rule for these guns, the cleaning schedule is pretty straightforward. I'm putting on my latex gloves because we're going to be messing with some chemicals. But the cleaning schedule is pretty straightforward. First and foremost, when you first get your gun, go ahead and wipe it down and clean it inside if you can, and then take it out to the range and fire it. Have fun with it, shoot it, have a good time with it. There is a typical break-in period, somewhere around 300 to 500 rounds. You know, it lets all the metal, start wearing in with each other. Once you go through the break-in period, though, your gun will be a lot of fun. We've gone through and tested multiple guns, literally 5,000 or 6,000 rounds each, without problems. After the break-in period. And that's just because we haven't gone up to 40,000 rounds yet, although we do take the guns out frequently, and we're keeping count. So regular maintenance is a really good thing for your gun. General rule of thumb is anytime that you take it and go fire it. You know, if you take it out to the range every weekend, then you should probably clean it every weekend. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. It's going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to show you a couple of things that will make your life easier, a couple of things to be careful of. And something else to keep in mind is if you don't go firing every weekend, which I know a lot of people can't do or don't want to do, still try to keep your gun clean. Try to do it once a month just to make sure everything's lubricated and working as expected, so the gun is ready when you want to pull it out. So three points that I want to point out is anytime you go fire the gun, clean it afterwards. So we're going to do what's called a field stripped cleaning. If you don't take it out firing too frequently, at least once a month, clean it once a month or once every couple of months. And then the third point is if for some reason you're out in the rain or snow or a heavy sweat because you're out there, if you're living in Houston, Texas with all the humidity, anytime that your gun is exposed to those kind of elements, go ahead and clean it at that point too. So we're going to talk about overall, what it looks like to clean, and primarily we're going to be focused on the top half, which is called the slide, which is where the actual firing and everything goes on for the gun. And then there's also the frame or the receiver that you'll be cleaning, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. This is pretty straightforward to clean inside, but it's really important to know that for the slide, there's two distinct areas of cleaning that you want to be careful with. And when I say careful with, I'm talking about oil, good old-fashioned gun oil. I use this, which I really like. It has this little, they call it a needle nose on there. As a general rule of thumb for me, anything that's past the spring this way, typically don't put oil in there. You'll see there's several holes, there's several notches and things like that. I'm going to show you how to clean these when we do the deep cleaning, which is a lot less frequent than the regular field strip cleaning that we just talked about, which should be every time that it's fired. But the deep cleaning, you don't put oil anywhere around here. And I'll show you some of these areas in just a minute. And the reason for that is because the guns are designed, on decades of knowledge and experience just in the gun industry. And one of the things that have been discovered is that if you put oil in some of these areas, especially this half of the slide where the firing pin is and the ejector rod, that spits out the the casing and stuff. If you put oil in there, it'll get the grit and the debris from the fired shots will get in there and it starts gumming it up, and it's just like putting sugar inside of oil. It becomes very gritty. So you want to keep oil out of this area, this half, when you're doing your cleaning and your lubricating on the regular field stripping. And then when we do the deep cleaning, we'll talk about what you use to clean for that, which is just basically good old-fashioned alcohol. In this case, it's what do they call it? Denatured 91% alcohol. So it evaporates quickly and there's nothing residue in there. So when we clean this half, inside especially, we're not going to use any oil. So you'll see that there's a lot of different spots here, different holes. different little widgets that you might be tempted to put oil on or think, hey, it makes sense. No, it doesn't. So don't do it. So we're gonna focus on oil and what goes on here, and especially just how to clean it in general. You know, the slide itself comes apart fairly easy. You have your recoil spring here, which just lifts right out. Then you have the barrel, which if you push it on the hood right here, just push it, it comes up and then goes out and pulls out like this. And then you have the slide. All right, so that's really all there is to this particular piece when we get into actually cleaning it. And of course, like we said, you know, we got the frame, you know, that we'll go through and do different things with, you know, to clean that. And there is one spot that you'll oil on the frame lightly where the trigger is. And that's the key here. Anytime that we talk about where to put the oil, it's just a very small drop. And then when you put that drop on, just kind of rub it lightly with your finger. And you'll be able to just kind of to smooth it out in there and put a light film. That's all it needs. It's not like a car engine where you need, you know 16 gallons of oil to run this whole thing. Very light touch. And again, you know, as we talked about, you know, when you have the spring area, you know, we're going to use some oil on patches to clean in here. But when we get to this area, we got to be very careful. We don't want to get oil anywhere. And inside, you know, you'll see here, there's like, here's a firing pin. So that's another little hole. This area where the extractor is, you know, that's all stuff that, you know, it gets fouled up, you know, from the gun, and little bit of debris get in there, and when you have oil with the debris, it could muck it up and not perform as expected. So anyway, just a couple things to keep in mind. So with that being said, I'm going to go through and start showing you how to clean this from the field stripping perspective, and then as well as the deep clean. All right, so here are my tools laid out. As I mentioned, I got my oil right here. I'm going to use this, which is called CLP, which is Clean, Lubricate, and Protect. You know, you'll find, you know, whatever works for you. And if you've been firing guns for a while and you have your own set of cleaners and tools, that's great. And if not, then, you know, some of the basics are, you know, a bore brush, you know, which you can buy in a kit, along with what's called a jag. And the jag is what you put the patches on, which are little cloths that will go through and help clean and dry. And then we have, of course, the handle here to hold the bore brush and the jag. We have some, these are specialized tools, otherwise known as potentially cotton swabs or Q-tips. So we'll use a couple of these. When we do the regular field strip cleaning, we'll probably just use one. When we do the deep cleaning, which will be the second half of this video, we'll use a couple more to get into the, you know, like the firing pin channel and things of that sort. So that's pretty much it. Then we have our scrub brush. This is a nylon brush. They make them in nylon, or you know, there's a metal, which is the same stuff as this, which I think it's bronze. I don't know. But just be careful that whatever you're using doesn't scratch your gun. So typically the gun kits, they have the right materials in these, but I recommend just using a basic nylon brush to do the cleaning. You have a large area here, and the shorter area here, not only is it shorter, and so you got the long, and then it's shorter, it's a little bit more stiff for places that are a little bit harder to get into to clean. And then, you know, as we talked about, you know, with the other parts here. So we'll just get into this right now. A couple things I want to show you is, if you look in here, you'll see there's some what we call fouling right here. That's the safety plunger. Which is part of the mechanism that when you go down and actually set the gun ready to fire, you know, that's what it moves internally and lets you do the ejection and things of that sort. You have the ejector right here, as we talked about. That's your firing pin channel. And we'll get to all that a little bit later. But for right now, we're going to use our nylon brush, and we're going to clean all of it with the brush, because again, there's no oil on the brush. We're just going to clean and get some of the heavy fouling off. And then when we're done with that, we're going to take a patch with a little bit of oil on it, and we'll go through and just wipe down on the inside, a little bit of the outside, and then we'll do the same thing when we get to the barrel. The spring itself is a little bit easier, even though you think that you need to oil it. Typically you don't. For the most part, the inside rod on these recoil springs is plastic. You can buy them with metal. Successor Systems is a certified armorer, so we can put different parts on here as you see fit, and as you saw when you configured your gun, you can get upgrades like trigger upgrades or slots cut in your slide, for optics and things of that sort. Would be on this side, things of that sort. So also, we're going to start offering other upgrades for your pistol configuration, but for the time being today, this is just some metal on the plastic, so you'll just wipe it down, and we'll get to that in a minute. So looking at this, we'll start with our, just kind of move things around a little bit so we got a bit of room here. We're going to just go and scrub, and again, you can probably see the fouling right here, especially on this side, a little bit darker, so we'll go scrub that. Start with that. Get inside the channel here, which is how the slide fits onto the rails. And we'll go ahead and use this side. I'll go ahead and take a patch. Your gun may be a little bit different. Go ahead and take a patch and just start wiping some of this stuff off, because it is pretty thick. Now we here at Successor Systems, we do a lot of shooting on these guns, especially as we're testing out different materials and different polymers and things of that sort, different components for performance. So we do a lot of firing. Typically in a weekend, we might fire upwards of 1,000 rounds, through maybe one gun. It's fun, but it gets to the point where it kind of gets to be work too, especially when we have to clean. So, but you want to keep your gun in top performance. So again, from a field stripping perspective, we're going to just brush and wipe down. We're not using any kind of lubricants or anything just yet, any kind of a cleaner. You'll see here that this patch is pretty dirty. That's all the fouling that was in there. It's all the residue and the debris from firing shots. And again, that was probably close to 1,000 shots, I suppose, since it was last cleaned, which was last weekend. And if you look at it, it looks a little bit better right now. It'll get even better. But now, again, as we talked about, you may be inclined to say, oh, that looks great and shiny. Let me put some oil on there. No. This whole half here, don't put oil. Don't do anything there. Don't put oil on this thinking it makes it better. Don't put oil inside this slot, which is for your trigger. We'll talk about this a little bit later. Don't do it. You're tempted, don't do it. Did I say don't put oil in here? Yeah, don't put oil in here. So, okay, so we got some of this heavy stuff off. We'll go through and just kind of scrub a little bit more, scrub inside of these slots for the rails. And you can see on the paper too, there's debris here, some of this powder, and it's just the nature of firing a gun. So. And then also what we want to do is, as you go in here where the actual back of the round goes, clean in here as well with your brush. Clean everywhere that you can really get into. In this case, it does. That takes a good brunt of fouling, and you can see some of it spitting off over here. And you may or may not notice, but there's actual little chunks of debris coming off here, so this is a good thing to do the cleaning. Now you may or may not have this kind of a little bit of a mess from going to the range once every 6 months and you fired 50 rounds or whatever you feel like firing, but again keeping it clean is the key from good maintenance to make sure that the firearm performs when you want it to, as you expect it to. I'm going to put another patch on here just to kind of clean up some of this stuff. So as I brushed it, I wipe it down with the patch. You see how much stuff is coming off there. So there really was quite a bit in here. And again, typically we put over 1,000 rounds each time we take a particular pistol out to the range and do some testing with it. So it's not surprising that it has this debris on there. Now, these are using parts that, are some Glock parts, some parts that are similar to Glock, and Glock is a very solid name in the firearm industry, and some Glocks, they say they can go like 100,000 rounds or something without cleaning. Yeah, that's great if you live in the desert and you're firing against all sorts of good stuff out there. But the reality is you still should maintain your gun, and even most gun manufacturers, including Glock, recommend to clean it after firing each time you go out to the range. So. If you're one of those people that you do use it a lot, don't be afraid to clean it and maintain it. All right, we're gonna keep wiping down. Go ahead and brush again. There's some slots right here that hold the back of the round, the rim. So I'm gonna get this off. Just kind of scrub in there. Again with my nylon brush. Get another patch. Well, there's still some crap there, but you'll see that we're gonna go through and we're gonna put a little bit of cleaner on our patch. We're not gonna spray it in there, but we're gonna put a little bit cleaner on our patch and just kind of wipe this down in just a minute. But I wanna make sure that I scrub everything first that needs to be scrubbed. So more of the slot, for the rails. And this little hole right here, that's where the front of your recoil spring goes, and then of course this is where your barrel goes right in here. Just kind of clean it in there a little bit. Have more debris coming off. Take my patch, just kind of wipe it down again. Again, I'm wearing these gloves, latex gloves, just because we're going to be using some chemicals a little bit later, and with the frequency that we clean guns here from our testing, definitely want to make sure that we're safe. Have some eye protection too, so you don't get these little flecks in your eyes. And that's really what you want to do. Just be careful, be safe. All right, so I think I feel pretty good about where this is right now, just from brushing off the debris. So the next step is pretty straightforward. Whereas we're just going to take another patch, get that ready. And before I do this, now I'm going to take my barrel. And the barrel, as you can see, there's some places here. This is where it's actually going to fire. This is the part that goes to the back, to the breech. And then there's a lug on here, which is part of the mechanism that goes through to when you're firing and keeps it ramming back and forth. So we're gonna scrub this real quick and then wipe it down as well. And you want to just scrub the whole thing. Don't be afraid. Get inside that lug. And then here, get here where the round will go. It's the back of the round goes in here, and that's what gets held in. It holds the round in there. And something else I want to point out, when you're doing this, when you're cleaning your guns and stuff, don't keep any live ammo around you. Typically, it's recommended keep ammo in a different room, just so you're not inclined to put something in there just to see if, how's it fit, how's it work, and then you forget about it, and then you load it up, and next thing you know, you have a discharge, and it could be a catastrophic type thing. So definitely use common sense and good firearms protocol when you're doing this. So this is just cleaning off some of the heavier stuff. Okay, and then we'll get in the barrel in a minute. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my CLP, which is my Clean, Lubricate, Protect, and I'm just going to spray this down just a bit. And I'll spray inside, go from the back, and then I go from the front as well. Again, this is the back and this is the front. I'm going to let this sit right here for just a minute. Now I'm going to take the same CLP and I'm just going to spray a little bit inside here. Again, staying away from this half, just to get some of the heavy fouling off. Do some on the outside too, just to keep it clean, nice and clean. And then I'm going to go through with my brush one more time and just kind of get inside these corners and get the ridges. Now here I'm going to use my brush and just kind of go down here and get the ridge. You know, that slot that this fits on the rim. And you know, now that we put that CLP in there, it's definitely loosening up the rest of the stuff, and you might be able to see how mucky this is inside. Okay. Wipe it down with a patch. And there again, you can see you got more fouling on there. And inside here, this is going to be interesting. I'm going to show you this now. Got me a fairly clean patch. I'm going to wipe down in here where I just scrubbed and sprayed, and scrubbed again. And look at that, all that fouling, all that gunk. So you just want to get that out. And again, you know, this is from quite a few runs from the weekend. But so you may not have anything near this dirty, but you still want to keep it maintained. Keep your gun maintained. And in a little while, when we actually get to oiling, we're going to put a little bit of oil in here. I'll show you how to do that very light. Remember, just a drop will do you, and that's it. Now with this patch, it's got a little bit of the cleaner on there. I'm just going to go ahead and wipe down here. You know, I'm not really at risk to get liquid inside these components. Where we don't want the liquid. These should be bone dry. These really are designed to be bone dry, not lubricated. And part of it's because there's not as much going on there as you think. I'll show you when we take this apart in just a minute for the deep clean. There's really not a lot that's going on in there. You got a spring and a couple of levers, and that's really it. So, you know, just adding oil is going to take all this kind of debris that you see that's coming off on these things, and it's just going to gunk up. It's going to, the debris is going to get stuck in the oil, and then next thing you know, it's just becoming clumps inside, and you don't want that. So, okay. So I think at this point, that's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and wipe down the breech, and the breech is looking really good. I got a patch here that's not too dirty, although, you know, I have plenty of patches online available to you. Okay. So that's good. I'm feeling good about this. Yep. Just wipe everything down. Now, as far as the regular cleaning after going to the range, that's pretty much it. You know, that's done for the slide. Then I would just, you know, put my oil in here. I'd put a very small drop of oil in the slot right here, as well as in this slot here, and just turn it on its back so that it slowly runs down in there. And again, one drop is all you need. Then take a patch, just kind of wipe it gently, and it'll go down after like maybe 3 to 5 minutes. It doesn't take long at all. So you have your oil right here, and then what you'll do is you put a little bit of oil on a patch, just a little bit on the patch, and then just wipe down in here, because here the hood from the barrel will go inside, and it does actually go against this. And you put a little bit of oil inside the hole where the barrel comes out of. So those are the places that go. Now, one other thing, just as you're doing your field stripping, I just want to point out, is when you actually have your gun itself, you've done the slide, then in here, these components are okay to you just clean them really good with, you know, with your CLP. Just let it sit in there for a few minutes, and then use your brush and brush the hell out of it. And then you're going to put oil only on one spot in here, which I'll show you a little bit later when I'll do a zoom so you can see it. But after it's all cleaned off, there's only one spot that you put a little bit of oil, even though there's some metal here, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So I'm going to set this aside. Just as I continue to work on the barrel. So now the barrel, I've sprayed it down. I'm going to go ahead and do another quick scrub on it. Get off any debris that was loosened by the CLP. especially right here at the back. This is the part, as we talked about, this holds you round at the rim, and then it's fired through here. And usually there is some gunk in here, you know, that it gets a little caked on. So definitely, and I don't know if you can see it. There's some right there, just a little bit caked on. All right, so from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my my bore brush, and from here I'm going to take my bore brush and I'm going to scrub right around here, just because there's some that thicker stuff that my nylon brush didn't really seem to like working with. So here at the breech, you get your little feeder ramp there that, you know, comes up, you know, when the round comes up from the magazine. So just scrub. And then, again, this is the back and this is the front. I'm gonna take my bore brush and push it through several times. And the easiest way to do that is just kind of push it in there and then push the barrel down and it goes up. You don't have to scrub it. You really don't want to go back and forth inside because of the rifling. You know, obviously on some guns like revolvers, it's a little bit difficult to get a bore brush in there like this, so they use what's called a bore snake, or you know, some people do scrub it back and forth as long as you go all the way to the end and all the way back. A little bit tricky, but we're not talking about revolvers today. So do this about 4, 5, 6 times, and then you'll notice that it should pretty much get out just about everything that you wanted. So then we'll take off our bore brush. We're going to put on what's called the jag. On the jag, again, these are specific for your caliber. So in this case, we're doing 9mm because that's what we're manufacturing right now, is the 9mm. And just take one patch, stick it right here on the middle. There's a little point. Oh, got my glove. Stick it right through, and then just like you did it with the brush, push it through, and you'll see all that black fouling on there that was inside the barrel. So typically what I do is I take it, turn it around, and do it again. And I'll do this about a couple of times at least. You see, even that on the third time, still got a little bit of debris in there. And you know, the idea is to keep this just nice and clean and well maintained for the next time we use it. All right, I'm gonna go one more time, just because I like it to be nice and clean. Okay. So in this particular case, 1,000 rounds, it took me 6 passes inside the barrel after it's been scrubbed to really get it nice and clean. Then what my final step is going to be is I'm going to take another patch. I'm going to take some of my oil, and I'm going to put some of this oil just lightly, and just kind of a little bit on here like this. See that? And then I'll put on my jag, and then I'm going to run this through. And you'll see that it's picked up a little bit more, but it's also oiling inside of that barrel. And just like we did before, we'll turn this inside out, poke it through, and that's it. And then the best way to check to see how clean it is you just take a patch and hold it underneath, and you should be able to see in there. See that? And you see it looks pretty nice and clean. So the patch reflects the light up into it. See that? And that way you can see, yeah, you did a pretty good job cleaning it. And from here, just wipe it down with that little patch that you just used to reflect your light. And we will then take this same patch, set our barrel aside, and just wipe down the spring. You know, again, you know, the spring itself is just a little bit of metal on plastic, and it's not really going to help you to oil anything on here. Even if it was a metal rod for your recoil spring, there's not really a lot going on, you know, friction-wise. So just wipe it down a little bit, get some of the debris off of there. But there's really nothing else that it needs. And these last, I mean, springs last for, I don't know, 3,000 to 5,000 rounds. So your spring's gonna last a pretty long time. So don't worry about it. Not anytime soon. Okay, so we got the spring, we got the barrel, and then we wiped down our slide. So that's it. And now if I was gonna go through and say, I'm done, I went to the range, I just did my field strip cleaning, that's really all I need to do. Again, I will put a drop of oil in here on this edge, this slot, and then on this slot, and then turn it like this and let the oil just run down in the slot for about 5, maybe 10 minutes, but 5 minutes should be enough. And then I will wipe this down with oil, but I'll get to that in just a minute. Since we're already field stripped, I'm going to show you how to do everything else in just a minute so that you can go through and do the deep cleaning as it needs to. All right, so as we talked about, the field stripping is basically cleaning the area itself, getting the debris out, using a little bit of your CLP, and scrubbing, not getting any kind of oil in these slots or spots that you have here, and then scrubbing out the debris that's in here and wiping it down. From this point then, once we've done that, that's going to happen, as we talked about, every time you go to the range, every time the gun's fired, or once a month, keep that clean. And then I'll tell you how to oil it, put it back together, and you're done. Now every, I don't know, I'd say maybe around 1,000 rounds or so, maybe a little bit more, you want to do your deep cleaning, which is when you take this section apart and clean everything that's in here. This section, you do not want to get any oil in there because, again, when you have debris, the debris itself will start mucking it up with the oil and cause a lot of problems. So in this case, what we're going to do, we're going to clean this half with our denatured alcohol. So I'm just going to put a little bit in a tin cup. You don't need a lot for what we're about to do. And I got my little tray here where I'm going to put my parts. Now, to clean this, you need to take out the components. And to take out the components, you need to take off this cover plate here, this back plate. And to do this, it's the whole back plate is pushed with the spring and everything that goes with it in here. So if you look carefully, you'll see that there's this little metal lug, but the metal lug itself has a little plastic tube that's right here. And that's the firing pin sleeve is inside of here. And that little plastic tube covers up the spring. So what you need to do is find something, and I have a little tool here that I can use to push this little plastic piece down, which this in turn will take the pressure off of the back plate, and then you slide the back plate off, this cover plate off. Now when you do that, keep your thumb over the plate because there's two springs. There's the main spring here, which is this one, and then for the extractor, there's a spring right here, and that one's got a little bit of force on it. It's going to pop right out. It's not going to go through your ceiling or anything, but you don't want to lose it. So keep your thumb over this so the springs don't pop out. So I'm going to press down, and then with my thumb, I'm going to go ahead and press my thumb like that. And as you can see, take that off, and then in here are my parts. So from this, I can go ahead and take out from the lug, take out the firing pin itself, and you can see there's got a lot of debris on there. So I'm going to clean this in just a second. And then the spring itself for the extractor is right here, and it's all connected. So we have this plunger, the safety plunger, and we have the spring. So we just push down the safety plunger where the extractor falls into the cup. Put that in our thing, hold that down. Then we got our spring here with the extractor rod. We'll clean that. And then we have the actual safety plunger itself. Now again, if you look at this, you'll see that there's a lot of debris on there. A lot of debris on all this. So this is definitely ready for a deep clean. So we're not going to use any of the CLP, we're not going to use any oil. You can use your brush to get some of the heavy stuff off, but then when it comes down to actually cleaning, we're going to use only our alcohol, and then we're going to use some of these cotton swabs. Just kind of brush that off. This is put together in a certain way. We'll talk about that in a second. Again, you want to be careful not to lose some of these parts. The spring is just kind of pushed in there with a little bit of friction, so you don't want to yank it off and lose it. Again, if you lose a part or if you need a replacement part, let us know. We are a certified armor, so we can help you with your parts. without a problem, just let me know. Okay, so I'm gonna go through and dip my cotton swab in my alcohol and just start cleaning this a little bit. This is all I gotta do, just go back and forth, so back and forth. You can see just that little bit right there, how dirty the cotton swab is. These parts last a long time too, so it shouldn't have to be anything you do anytime soon. I mean, literally thousands of rounds, so. When in doubt, send me an email. If I can't answer you, then I'll see if somebody else can. And Google's always a good guy too, so. And once we're done cleaning these parts, as we talked about, we're just gonna put them back. We're not gonna put any oil on them. And I wanna stress that. And the reason I wanna stress it is because when I first started getting into these things, I thought, any place that had a hole, it needed oil. And boy, was I wrong. so I oil everything up and it would just be dripping oil, and I'd go out to the range and something wouldn't work right, or I'd start getting all these misfires or, light strikes, and that's coming up the, the firing pin. And it's like, wow, what's going on? So as I started researching, I realized, wow, I just kind of jumped in there head first with my little canister of oil, and that was not something to do. Okay, so I've used my cotton swab, and I'm gonna take a patch, just kind of dip this in my alcohol, and just wipe this down real good. And the reason you want this type of alcohol, this 91%, is because it really, it works nice first off to clean it, as a solvent, but then also it evaporates really quickly. So you don't have to worry about, liquid, being in there some kind of thing. I'll cut that part up. All right, it's all nice and clean. And then we'll move on to the extractor rod. Just come that up. I'm just wiping down the spring. All this can come apart if you feel that you need to. So if for some reason you feel like, oh, it's really dirty in there, then yeah, it does come apart fairly straightforward. But in my case, I'm just gonna wipe it down. I'm okay with that. And when you put this back together, it's real kind of easy to think about. Metal to metal, which is that back plate. Plastic to plastic is the back plate, and metal to metal would be this metal plunger piece to the extractor itself. So you don't want to mix those parts up. Okay, and then now we have the safety plunger. I'm going to get me another swab. Just start cleaning this. Getting all the debris off. And again, I might be tempted to oil this up. Don't do it. Guess you could have a drinking game. How many times did he say, don't oil this? But all right, this is looking real good. Take me a little bit of a swab here, excuse me, a patch, and just kind of wipe this down. Now, the firing pin is a little bit different. There's these two pieces up at the top that hold the spring in. It's a little bit of a cup that's split in half. You take those off, the spring comes off, and there's a couple other pieces here, then you can wipe this down and clean the whole thing. I do want to go ahead and take this apart and clean it all, just because, you know, eventually, you know, the debris and stuff gets in there, and it does end up just kind of mucking up a little bit. So the easiest way to do it is you just pull the spring, pull it down, and then these two cut pieces will come off. So pull it down. Pull it down more. There we go. All right. And that's it. Okay, so as we talked about, these two cut pieces. I'm gonna put these on a patch because they're so small, and they are the same color as my glove, so you're not gonna be able to see them. That's what we have there, those two cut pieces. So that's what kind of caps off the spring, which is what we have right here. And then you have the firing pin itself with the firing pin sleeve. And inside the gun, there's an actual piece of plastic in there too. So from here, we're gonna go ahead and wipe this down with a patch and some alcohol. Getting off the debris. Definitely do this over a table with lots of room, because as you're seeing, some of my hands are fumbling just a little bit. You know, you don't want to lose things on the floor or in your workshop, and then you spend 2 hours looking for it. Kind of takes the joy out of it. I enjoy cleaning. I think cleaning is kind of relaxing, kind of zen-like. I'm sure my ex-wife would have something to say about that, but we'll see. So, all right, so we wipe this all down. And then you'll see, this is the patch that I just used. And I don't know if you can really see it in the light, but there's a lot of little metal flecks and stuff on there that are shimmering. So there's, you know, all sorts of little debris on there. So definitely want to make sure that we get that stuff, you know, clean this. And again, you know, this deep cleaning, I don't know, you know, maybe every 500 rounds to 1,000 rounds, you know, maybe a little bit longer. Use your judgment. You know, if you start noticing that you're getting, you know, light fires or failure to extract or even failure to load, you know, 9 times out of 10, I would say that your gun just needs a good cleaning. So, and again, that's after the break-in period. Although there's not a lot of official word out there about what's the break-in period, typically 300 to 500 rounds. Everything's settled and the parts have, you know, kind of worn into place where they need to be. So, you know, if you're ambitious, you know, you could take a couple boxes of ammo out to the range, spend an hour out there, you know, with your family or your buddies, and just fire through and get that break-in period done in one day, you know, with a little bit of luck. Then go home, clean your gun, and you're ready for the next time. So, okay, that's all nice and clean. Now I'm gonna go wipe it down and with a dry cloth. Yeah, all right, so that is our firing pin. And you'll notice it has this little tip on here. Now, this is also a good time when you're doing this kind of cleaning to go ahead and look and see, does everything look okay? Am I seeing any kind of stress or cracks or anything? You know, for us here at Successor Systems, using these parts for so much testing, you know, occasionally we do want to make sure, we want to look to make sure that there's not, you know, problems or something's worn, or, you know, maybe somehow wore a little bit abnormally. So, right now everything's looking good, you know, on our parts, and we do check them, pretty regularly with the amount of rounds that we fire. So everything's looking good on the extractor and on the firing pin itself. I'm going to go ahead and clean this here, the little spring protector, which I know it has a proper name, and I will put that in the video. Just kind of wipe it down. See that? Just a little bit of debris from just inside here. And I'll take my patch, a little bit of alcohol, and just rub the outside. All right, so far so good. So almost done. Now I got my spring. And again, I'm gonna just take my patch, dip in some alcohol, and I'm just gonna wipe this down. just have a little bit of dust on there, not much. And carefully wipe down my little spring cups that are on here. Now, interesting enough, these little spring cups, you know, they're pretty basic. They hold the spring in there, but there is actually a version available to Navy SEALs, I believe it is, and it is military only, so it's not something you can really just get just offhand, and you don't need to, realistically. But they have special notches in it, They have notches in there so that when you're in the water and you go to get out of the water and use your weapon, that the water drains quicker for the spring, so that you have that much less resistance and things of that sort. So it's kind of interesting, you know, how this stuff works. You know, so these little cups, they have little slots, little water channels that come out. But again, those are military only, and honestly, unless you're going to be, you know, deep diving in your pool and killing squirrels and frogs, there's really no reason to have it, or kill a squirrel or a frog, I guess, unless they're becoming a nuisance. So, okay, so we've cleaned our parts. I'm going to set this aside for a few minutes, because now what we're going to do is we're going to clean inside of this area here that we keep saying don't put any oil in. And to do that, all we need is another swab and our alcohol, and just kind of wet this up here. And I'm going to start by at the top here for the safety plunger is. I'm just going to kind of go in here, clean. Look how dirty that is, right there from the safety plunger. And the safety plunger, it goes in here where the extractor is, and those two work together. So I'll go through and do this again. Now I'll just kind of wipe it down in here, see if you can see inside. Yeah, just take your swab and kind of go around. There's a little spot here. There's a little hole, as you might have seen on the extractor. There's this little piece right here. What do you see? This right here. And that goes into this little hole that's on the side. I guess that's like a pivot, kind of holds it in there. But anyway, just use your swab and clean in here. You might need more than one or two swabs. I got some swabs here. Get my dirty stuff out of the way. All right, do it one more time. And again, alcohol, not oil, not CLP, your alcohol. Clean in here. Alrighty. Now we're going to go ahead and clean inside here. Again, where your firing pin goes. Now inside here, there is a firing pin sleeve. And those typically don't need maintenance. And as you can see, mine didn't even come out. It doesn't typically fall out anyway. You know, if you have a problem, it's typically because you have oil and debris in there. That's why I'm telling you, don't put oil in these things on this half. Because if you get oil in there, then debris gets in there and it acts as you know, an abrasive, and it could muck up that firing pin sleeve, which could interfere with the spring and cause some issues like light fires and stuff. So you know, typically you don't have to replace those, but if you do, we can service it for you, or you know, take it to your gunsmith. He can service it for you, and that's not something you need to do. Most of these parts that are here, you don't need to just go worry about changing those out anytime soon. I mean, they're all designed, even by third-party manufacturers or commercial manufacturers. They're all designed to last, you know, probably several thousand rounds, if not longer. So it'll usually take a while for you to get there. And then, you know, you might notice that, hey, something's not working right. It's a little bit slower. You know, those kind of things, yeah, you'll probably see them after 5,000 or 10,000 rounds. So don't go out of your way to think you need to replace parts regularly, because you don't. So in here, I'm just going in where the extractor plunger goes, and just, you know, putting a little bit of this alcohol on there, just going right into this hole, and it's coming out right in there. don't know if you can see it. Yep. Now, if for some reason when I pull this out, this little top of the cotton swab gets stuck, you just push it out one way or the other. You know, it's not the end of the world. It is a little bit of a problem if it gets stuck in here, because the only way for it to come out from the other end is on that firing pin hole, which is pretty small. So if you get something stuck in there, you know, it doesn't happen frequently, but while you're cleaning it, if it does, just get something light, you know, like a little, you know, piece of metal that you can pull out, or even, you know, a long stick, and just kind of get out that. But then that should be all that you need to do. At the end of the day, everything here, you can get to it and take it apart. It's just sometimes a little bit more irritating than others. So, all right, so I'm gonna finish cleaning up this channel. And I know I'm getting the inside of the sleeve because I can feel it. All right, and then from here, the last thing I'm gonna do, I need just a little bit more alcohol. And I'm gonna go ahead and get me a patch, just kind of wet it down a little bit, and then wipe down this area here. So you've noticed I've brushed it and, you know, used a couple patches on it earlier. I'm gonna do it one more time. There we go, it's pretty clean. And that's it, and then I will take one more patch and just kind of dry it off. And again, that alcohol will evaporate pretty quickly, like within a matter of a minute or two. It's pretty good stuff, you know, for what it does. Yeah, go over here, clean the breech. Oops. Basically just wipe down every place that I just went with my cotton swab. And that still has a little bit of debris, but hardly anything at all. So certainly a lot better than it was. I'll just kind of wipe that down. All right. Okay, all right, now get my alcohol out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and put everything back together so that we can assemble the slide and then get it back on our gun. So first things first is this black sleeve for the firing pin. Put it on, make sure the slot goes towards the back. See that? It's gonna go like that. And when you're taking off the cover plate on the back and you're pushing down, this is what you're pushing down on actually, this little piece of plastic here. Pushing that down, which was compressing the spring, which was taking pressure off the back so that you could slide off that cover plate. So anyway, you have this in place now. We're gonna put the spring on and then we're gonna put those two cups on. We got the spring. Find a little something you can typically go through on the, like here on the back of your gun, and just with the lug somewhere secure, push down that spring, and then you're gonna put your cups in carefully, because if the spring shoots up, those cups are gonna be gone. All right, and that's it. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind is, you know, the seam of the cups, I think you can see it right there. It's right at the edge of the spring. So I always like to just turn it just a little bit, just so that there's not undue pressure that could potentially make those cups a little skewed and, I don't know, cause an issue. So anyway, so that's our firing pin assembled back. And these other parts, they're all ready to go. So we're going ahead and, again, plastic to plastic and metal to metal. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in the extractor plunger. Just push it in there. Not push it all the way, but push it in a good number. Okay. And then the extractor itself, I'm gonna go ahead and put that in. And remember, there's this little piece on here that goes into the hole. So you just put that into the hole, and that's gonna fit fine. So before you do that, you got your safety plunger. So you got your extractor rod, your safety plunger. You put your safety plunger down, and before you push on that rod, then you put in this extractor, and that's it. Now everything is held together. The safety plunger is holding on the extractor, and the rod is in there. You're good to go. Now put in your firing pin, which just goes in, one way. Don't force it, don't push it, but as you gently push it in, then the firing pin itself should come right near, yep, right there at the hole. So we're good to go on that. And now, as you can see, everything's good. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take my back cover plate. I'm just gonna wipe this down with a little bit of alcohol. It's rare that that would actually catch much, just because it's behind so many other things, so it doesn't really get dirty on the inside. I'll take it off anyway, and we have to take it off, so we'll just go ahead and clean it. Okay, so now with this all put together like this, you're gonna push down these springs. Now it's a little bit tricky the way the springs are, so I'm gonna push down the main for the trigger, and then slide in the back plate halfway, I hope. Make sure you don't put it in the reversed. Okay, now it's ready. I'm going to use my tool that I have here to push this down. All right, now all I have left is my extractor plunger. I'm going to push that down and keep pushing the back plate in, and it just snaps right into place, and it's done. Now, from here, that's it. So that's the deep cleaning. We're gonna put it back together, and as we talked about with the field stripping, now we just take our oil, and we're gonna put just a drop in that slot, and we'll put a drop in that slot. We're just gonna tilt it and just let it run down. And it'll run down, it'll take a couple minutes. But I don't know if you can see it in the light, it's already about a third of the way down. So we'll just leave it like this for a minute. I'm gonna fast forward through this piece so y'all are sitting here watching this video doing nothing. And it looks like it's almost down there, which is great. Okay, that's good. And then I will go through and take one of my patches and just kind of wipe lightly. All right, and then the barrel itself, I'm gonna go ahead and put my barrel in. Before I put the barrel in, I'm gonna put just a couple of drops of oil here on the top. And if you see, there's already some wear marks in this top section here. This is from the barrel when it goes back and forth, with the hood. So you got a couple of drops of oil in there, just take your fingertip and smear this around a little bit. Creates a thin film. I'll do the same thing for the sides with that same, you don't need to add more oil, but you get your fingertip on there. Okay. Then go ahead and put in your barrel. So you have to kind of tilt it, put it in the hole, but before we do that, I forgot, sorry. Now that I got some oil on my finger here, I'm also gonna go right here inside the hole where the barrel is. All right. Then put the barrel in, push it back, and then you'll put in your recoil spring. There's two different sizes on it for the stops. The smaller size is going to go into the hole here, and then the flat piece will go inside the notch in the barrel. It's if you have trouble with it, flip it around, but it's pretty straightforward. And these springs, depending on what you have on your gun, if you have like an optic or a suppressor and things like that, you might have to change the weight of the springs. So there's a lot of different springs on there. If you're not adding a bunch of stuff to your slide, then I don't recommend you start messing with the springs, just because, the springs are balanced, in weights between, I think it's like 15 and 18 pounds. The springs are balanced between the recoil that's needed for a particular round to be fired, the pressure of it going back, and the spring. So if you just start throwing different springs in there for no real reason, then the gun may not work as expected. Not necessarily in a bad way, but you might start getting light fires or failure to eject because, the thing's not going right, or stovepipes. And all the, failure to eject is when you get a round that, as it goes through to eject the round, instead of it spitting out the round, it just kind of gets stuck in here. There's not enough pressure to push it out, or it's not fast enough, or get what's called a stovepipe, which is when you get around, it kind of sticks up and it looks like a stovepipe. So anyway, we have all this. Now the other places, so we've oiled inside the top of the two slots for the rails, and we tilted it this way, and the oil's down there. I can already see that. Then you're going to put a drop of oil on top of this little lug right here. And just kind of rub it again with your finger, just for a nice gentle film. And then from here, we're going to turn it over, and we're going to put a drop of oil right at the edge of the hood, and just kind of rub it around. And that's all we need right there. Now what this is doing is the two slots are for the slide. When it does the recoil and you're racking the slide, we had a little bit of oil on the inside so that the internal part of the barrel, the barrel hood, it has a little bit of oil in there for reducing the friction. And then we put a little bit of oil on top of the hood so that when it goes down and in, it's also just very slightly lubricated, so no issues there. Now at this point, if we wanted to, we could put a drop of oil on our on a patch and just do the slide real quick, very lightly. You know, you don't want to get stuff stuck on your fingers. You know, when you take it out to the range, again, it's just to kind of help. In this case, it's just kind of to preserve it. So we'll put just a little bit of oil and just wipe this down real quick. And if you have an optic on here, you don't need to take off your optic when you do this cleaning. You know, the optics do require a little bit of maintenance, very light, but you shouldn't have to take it off of your slide unless there's an actual problem with it. Also, when it's installed, if we install it for you, we'll put on there what's called witness marks so that you can see where the screws are. And as you're firing it, if for some reason the screws are becoming loose, you'll see, you know, there's a little mark on the screw and a little mark on the body, and they're lined up. So it's just a little line. So if it's firing and you notice that the screw starts turning a little bit, then you can tighten it back. Those are called witness marks. And that just means that, you know, it needs to be retorqued. And we do torque them to spec when we do the installations ourselves. And, you know, sure, anybody else who does your installation for you will be torquing it to spec. You know, I caution you that if you do it yourself, if you install your own optic, spend a couple extra dollars for the tool to torque. So that way then, you know, it's on there right, not too tight, not too loose, but just as expected, you know, with everything that's on there. So at this point, my slide is done. We've done everything we could do for the slide to get it cleaned up and maintained. We did the field strip, which is basically taking care of this half with a little bit of oil, and we did the deep clean, which is at the firing pin and the extractor and the plunger and the safety plunger and everything that goes with that. This half, you're doing the cleaning for after every time you go to the range or once a month. This half is probably, I don't know, maybe 500 to 1,000 rounds. You know, if you start noticing issues, then go ahead and clean it. Sometimes it might be a couple of thousand rounds. Sometimes it might be 800 rounds. But the deep cleaning isn't something that needs to happen every time you go to the range. So just be mindful. Oil, alcohol. It's really that straightforward. So our slide is nice and clean and all done. So that's it for maintaining the slide. Now I do want to show you just real quick for the gun itself. We did talk about inside, we sprayed it with some CLP. We're going to go ahead and brush it. I'm going to go do all this offline, but the one thing I did want to point out was about the oil itself. There's this little point right here where the trigger is, and it goes to what's called the connector, and there's a little piece of metal in there. And that's the only place on this frame that you're going to go ahead and oil after it's all clean. Just put a drop of oil in there, and that's all you got to do because that's metal to metal. Now the connector itself, we do sell those and we do installations for performance, which takes the standard 5.5 pound trigger pull approximately and reduces it to 3.5 pounds, which is good for a faster recoil. And also the spring on there, the trigger reset spring is 6 pounds. So, you know, it improves the overall performance, shaves off a couple of pounds. In this case, I guess almost 30%, 25-30% of the trigger pull. So, you know, it's good for improving your speed shooting, you know, while maintaining accuracy and things of that sort. So when you go to order your gun, you know, it is an option that we can install that for you. All right, so that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to drop me a line. I'm going to go through my video and confirm that I got my terminology right. You know, sometimes as I go through this, or people you see on videos, they might have called something different than what was intended, and you get 10,000 comments. You said the wrong word. So I'll make sure of that. But you know, happy shooting, and a well-maintained gun is a happy gun. So good luck to everybody, and thanks for supporting Successor Systems. And we will see you around. Thanks.